Hey there, angry faithful. I just wanted to drop in, bend your ear a little bit, get your attention. So if you're not listening, drop what you're doing and pay attention to me because I'm here to inform you that not only can you get your daily, maybe if you're binging it, I'm not sure, that's entirely up to you, but you can multiply your doses of angry me fuckery by paying attention to all of the platforms upon which you can find either the dulcet tones of my voice and David's voice or my pretty face and David's not so pretty face. Anyways, digressing, we not only on we are on YouTube, we are on Spotify, we're on Rumble, we're on Google, Apple Podcast. We have a TikTok page. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and of course Facebook. So if you find yourself fuckery deprived, curl up with a nice hot mug of shut the fuck up and just listen. Open those ear holes and be prepared to be cream pied like it's the first time. Thanks for listening.
Welcome, Angry Faithful. Today on Psychos and Sociopaths, reason why, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm wearing a cowboy hat is because we're going to be talking about Billy the Kid. Now, Billy the Kid actually went over by different names. His actual born name was Henry McCarthy, but he was also known as William H. Bonney. And if the story goes, he also was known as Brushy Bill. Now, we'll get into the Brushy Bill part first, but let's go over Billy the Kid. Uh, Early in life, Henry McCarthy was born to his parents of Irish Catholic ancestry from Catherine and Patrick McCarthy in New York City. A theory suggests that he was born on September 17th, 1859, in New York City. He was baptized Patrick Henry McCarthy at, at the Church of St. Peter on September 28th, 1859. While his birth year has been confirmed as 1859, the exact date of his birth has been disputed as either the 17th of September or the November 23rd of that year. A letter from an official at St. Peter's Church in Manhattan states it is in possession of records showing McCarthy was baptized there on September 28th, 1859. Census records indicates the young brother Joseph McCarthy was born in 1863. Following the death of her husband Patrick, Catherine McCarthy and her sons moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, where she met William Henry Harrison Anthem. The McCarthy family moved from Anthem to Wichita, Kansas in 1870. After moving again few years later, Catherine married Anthem on March 1st, 1873. At the First Presbyterian Church in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in the New Mexico Territory. Back then, they just call it New Mexico Territory, and is there in the territory Texas? I think Texas, just Texas, California territory. They call them territories because the actual states were actually a little bit larger, and then they decided to cut all that down. McCarthy and his brother Joseph were witness to the ceremony. Shortly afterwards, the family moved from Santa Fe to Silver City, New Mexico. And Joseph McCarthy began using his name Joseph Anthem. Shortly before McCarthy's mother, Catherine, died of tuberculosis, then called consumption. On September 16th, 1874, William Anthem abandoned the McCarthy boys and left them as orphans. First crimes. McCarthy, Billy the Kid, was 15 years old when his mother died. Sarah Brown, the owner of the boarding house, gave him room and board in exchange for work. On September 16th, 1875, Billy the Kid, was caught stealing food. 10 days later, Billy the Kid and George Schaefer robbed a Chinese laundry, stealing clothes and two pistols. McCarthy was charged. Who's Billy the Kid? I'm gonna have to. I should have edited this beforehand. Was charged with theft and was jailed. He escaped 2 days later and became a fugitive. As reported in Silver City Herald the next day, the first story published about him. Billy the Kid located his stepfather and stayed with him until Anthem threw him out. Billy stole clothes and guns from him. It was the last time the two ever saw each other. After leaving Anthem, Billy traveled to southeastern Arizona territory, where he worked as a ranch hand and gambled his wages in nearby gambling houses. In 1876, he was hired as a ranch hand by well-known rancher Henry Hooker. God, I don't know why, but as soon as I saw the Hooker, I was like, Henry Hooker. I understand last names and everything. I got bullied for my last name, but it's still, I can see the humor in it now. During this time, Billy became acquainted with John R. Mackey, a Scottish-born criminal and former U.S. cavalry private who, following his discharge, remained near the U.S. Army post at Camp Grant in Arizona. The two men soon began stealing horses from local soldiers. Billy became known as Kid Anthem because of his youth, slight build, clean-shaven appearance, and personality. On August 17th, 1877, Billy was at a saloon in the village of Bantha, where he got into an argument with Francis P. Windy Cahan. Cahan? Is it Cahan? I think it's Cahan. Cahill.
Cahill.
Yeah, Cahill. A blacksmith who reportedly had bullied Billy, and on more than one occasion called him a pimp. Dude, at that age and you're called a pimp? Let's see if it's pimp. Yeah, same thing as it was in this time frame and that time frame. Billy in turn called Cowhill a son of a bitch, whereupon Cowhill threw Billy into the floor and the two struggled for Billy's revolver. Billy shot and mortally wounded Cowhill. A witness said Billy had no choice. He had to use his equalizer. Cahill died the following day. Sorry, I had to do that. Billy flew, but returned a few days later and was apprehended by Miles Wood, local justice of the peace. Billy was detained and held in the Camp Grant guardhouse, but escaped before the law enforcement could arrive. Billy stole a horse and fled to Arizona territory for the New Mexico territory. But Apaches took the horses from him, leaving him to walk many miles to the nearest settlement. At Fort Stanton in the Pisco Valley, Billy, starving and near death, went to the home of friend and Steve Rivers Warrior Gang member John Jones, whose mother Barbara nursed him back to health. After regaining his health, Billy went to the Apache Tahoe, a forming army post where he joined a band of rustlers who raided herds owned by cattle migrant John Christum in Lincoln County. After Billy was spotted in Silver City, his involvement with the gang was mentioned in the local newspaper. At some point in 1877, Billy began to refer to himself as William H. Bonney. After returning to New Mexico, Billy worked as a cowboy for English businessman and rancher John Henry Tansel near Rio Felix. A tributary
Tributary.
tributary of the Rio Grande in Lincoln County. Stan and his business partner and lawyer Alexander McSween were opponents of alliance formed by Irish American businessman Lawrence Murphy and James Dolan and John Riley. The three men had wielded an economical and political hold over Lincoln County ever since the early 1870s, due in part to their ownership of the beef contract with nearby Fort Stanton and a patronized patronized. I know I'm reading this right.
Patronized.
Yeah, patronized dry goods store in the town of Lincoln. By February 1878, McSween owned $8,000 to Dolan, who obtained a court order and asked for Lincoln County Sheriff William J. Brady to attach nearly $40,000 worth to Tolston's property and livestock. Tolston put Bonnie in charge of 9 prime horses and told him to relocate them to his ranch for safekeeping. Meanwhile, Sheriff Brady assembled a large posse to seize Tolston's cattle. On February 18th, 1878, Tolston learned of the posse and presence on his land and rode out to intervene. During the encounter, one member of the posse shot Tolston in the chest, knocking him off his horse. Another posse member took Tolston's gun and killed him with a shot to the back of the head. Tolston's murder ignited a conflict between the two factions that became known as the Lincoln County War. After Tolston was killed, Billy the Kid, and Dick Brewer swore advocates. God, words are horrible for me.
Affidavits.
Swore affidavits against Brady and those who and his posse, obtaining murder warrants from Lincoln County Justice of the Peace John B. Wilson. On February 20th, 1878, while attempting to arrest Brady, the sheriff and deputies found and arrested Billy and 2 other men riding with him. Deputy U.S. Marshal Wall Whitman, a friend of Billy, and a detachment of soldiers captured by Sheriff Brady's jail guards, put them behind bars and released Billy the Kid and Brewer. Billy the Kid, when joined with the Lincoln County regulators on March 9th, they captured Frank Baker and William Morton, both of whom were accused of killing Tolston. Baker and Morton were killed while allegedly trying to escape. On April 1st, the regulator ambushed Sheriff Brady and his deputies. William was wounded in the thigh during the battle. Brady and the deputy sheriff, George W. Hidman, were killed. On the morning of April 4th, 1878, Buckshot Roberts, dude, that's a badass, Buckshot Roberts, and Dick Brewer were killed during the shootout of Blazer Mill. Warrants were issued for several participants on both sides. Billy the Kid and 2 other were charged with the killing of Brady and Hidman and Roberts. The Battle of Lincoln. On the night of Sunday, July 14th, McSween and the regulators, now a group of 50 to 60 men, went to Lincoln and stationed themselves in town among several of the buildings. At the McSween residence, Billy the Kid, Francisco Chavez, Jose Chavez. Wow, that's gonna be a long one. Hold on.
Jose Chavez y Chavez.
Jose Chavez y Chavez. It's literally what it says. Jimmy French, Harvey Morrison, Tom Florin, and Jacoborno Salazar.
Eugenio Salazar.
Eugenio Salazar, among others. Another group led by Martin Chavez and Doc Sherlock. That I got to recheck on that one. Skurlock. It's almost like Sherlock, but it's Skurlock. Pitching himself in the roof of the saloon. Harry Newton Brown, Dick Smith, and George Cole defended a nearby adobe bunk house. On Tuesday, July 16th, Looney appointed Sheriff George Pimpin. God damn, the names of these people. Fucking great. Sent sharpshooters to kill Billy the Kid defenders at the saloon. Pimpin's men retreated when one of the snipers, Charles Crawford, was killed by Fernando Herrera. Pimpin then sent a request for assistance to Colonel Nathan Doley, commandant of nearby Fort Stanton. In a reply to Pimpin, Dooley refused to intervene, but later arrived in Lincoln with troops, turning the battle in the favor of the Murphy-Dalton faction. A shooting war broke out on Friday, July 19th. McSweden's supporters gathered inside his house when Buck Powell and the deputy sheriff Jack Long set fire to the building. The occupants began shooting. Billy and the other men fled the building when all rooms but one were burning. During the confusion, Alex McSweden was shot and killed by Robert W. Beckenwith, who was then shot and killed by Billy the Kid. His time as an outlaw. Billy the Kid and 3 other survivors of the Battle of Lincoln were near the new words. Hold on, people. Macalaro Indian Agency. When the agency bookkeeper Morris Bernstein was murdered on August 5th, 1878, all four were indicted for the murder, despite conflicting evidence that Bernstein had been killed by Constable. Hold on.
Constable Atanasio Martinez.
Constable Martinez. All of the indictments except Billy the Kids were later squashed. On October 5th, 1878, U.S. Marshal John Sherman informed newly appointed Territory Governor and former Union Army General Lew Wallace that he held warrants for several men, including William H. Anthem, a.k.a. Billy the Kid, alias Bonnie, but was unable to execute them owing to the disruption disrupted condition of affairs in the country, resulting from the acts of desperation, desperate class of men. Wallace issued an oh man, sometimes these words just come out at you just don't know. Amnesty proclamation on November 13th, 1878, which pardoned anyone involving in the Lincoln County War since Tolson's murder. It was specifically included persons who had been convicted of or indicted for a crime, and then therefore excluded Billy the Kid. On February 18th, 1879, Billy the Kid and friend Tom O'Florin were in Lincoln and watched as attorney Hudson Chapman was shot and his corpse set on fire. According to eyewitnesses, the pair were innocent bystanders forced by gunpoint by Jesse Evans to witness the murder. Billy Kidd wrote to Governor Wallace on March 13th, 1879, with an offer to provide information on the Chapman murder in exchange for amnesty. On March the 15th, Governor Wallace replied agreeing to the secret meeting to discuss this situation. Billy met with Wallace in Lincoln on March 17th, 1879. During the meeting and in subsequent correspondence, Wallace promised Billy protection from his enemies and clements if he would offer his testimony to the grand jury. Sorry, folks. My mouth is getting a little dry in this heat. On March 20th, Wallace worked to Billy the Kid to remove all suspicion of understanding that I think it better to put the arresting party in charge of Sheriff Kimball, who shall be instructed to see that no violence is used. Billy responded to the same day, agreed to testify and confirm Wallace's proposal for his arrest and detention in the local jail to assure his safety. On March 21st, Billy the Kid let himself to be captured by a posse led by Sheriff Gore Kimball of Lincoln County. As agreed, Billy the Kid provided a statement about Chapman's murder and testified in court. However, after Billy the Kid's testimony, a local district attorney refused to set him free. Still in custody several weeks later, Billy the Kid became suspicious Wallace had used subterfuge and would never grant him an amnesty. Billy the Kid escaped from Lincoln County Jail on July 17th, 1879. Billy the Kid avoided further violence until January 10th, 1880, when he shot and killed Joe Grant, a newcomer to the area, on Hardgrove Saloon in Fort Sumner, New Mexico. The Santa Fe Weekly, New Mexico, reported Billy Bonney, more extensively known as the Kid, shot and killed Joe Grant. The origin of the difficult was not learned. According to correspondence sources, Billy the Kid had been warned Grant intended to kill him. He walked up to Grant, told him he admired his revolver, and this is where that scene comes from, Young Guns. Grant handed it. Okay, let me read this again. I'm just giving reference to the movie. I'm sorry. Billy the Kid had been warned Grant intended to kill him. He walked up to Grant, told him he admired his revolver, and asked to examine it. Grant had handed it over before returning the pistol, which he noticed contained only 3 cartridges. Billy the Kid pistoned the cylinder into the next hammer. Fall would land on an empty chamber. Grant suddenly pointed his pistol at Billy the Kid's face and pulled the trigger. When it failed to fire, Billy the Kid drew his own weapon, shot Grant in the head. A reporter from Las Vegas Optic quoted Billy the Kid has saying the encounter was a game of two, and I got there first. That's that's pretty. There, that's kind of. I never even heard that saying. Was a game of two, and I got there first. That's I don't know how that works, but anyways, someone's bound to tell me in the comments or something like that. If you can tell me I'll either that or I'll look it up. But right now I got to get this finished. In 1880, McCarthy formed a friendship, or Billy the Kid formed a friendship with ranch named Jim Greathouse, who later introduced him as David Rotherberg. On November 29th, 1880, Rotherberg, Billy the Kid, and Billy Wilson ran from a posse led by Sheriff's Deputy James Carsill. Now I'm going to stop here. I know it's back then they didn't have like deputies or uh police department or anything like that. What they ended up having to do, they'd get local citizens, and this is just for information. A lot of people don't know about posses. What they would do, they would get local citizens, some of them that just had guns and everything like that, and horses, and ride out as a group. And it was honestly, in my opinion, very chaotic when you're in those. In my opinion, looking back on that stuff and everything like that, is very, very chaotic, because there's a lot of times that some of the posse members would just go crazy and just start shooting, and the sheriff or the deputy who's running the posse would have to gather those persons, tell them to go home sometimes, and it was just very chaotic. But back to the story concerning at Grant Hill's ranch. Billy the Kid told the posse they were holding Grant House as a hostage. Carsill offered to exchange places with Grant House, Great House, Great House, and Billy's Kid accepted the offer. Carsill is later attempted to escape by jumping through a window, but he was shot 3 times and killed. The shootout ended in a standoff. The posse withdrew. Sorry. The shootout ended in a standoff. The posse withdrew, and Billy the Kid, Rothbrough, and Wilson ran away. A few weeks later, the Great House incident, Billy the Kid, Rothbrough, and Wilson, no filler, Charles Bowie, and Tom Pickett rode into Fort Summer. Unbeknownst to Billy the Kid and his companions, a posse led by Pat Garrett was waiting for him. The posse opened fire, killing O'Foley, and the rest of the outlaws escaped unharmed. On December 13th, 1880, Governor Wallace posted a $500 bounty for Billy the Kid. Billy the Kid's capture. Pat Garrett continued his search for Billy the Kid. On December 23rd, following the siege at which Bodare was killed, Garrett and his posse captured Billy the Kid along with Pickett, Rothenberg, and Wilson at Stinking Springs. Sometimes the stuff in our country just makes me laugh at what they're named. The prisoners included Billy the Kid, were shackled and taken to Fort Summer, where then later to Las Vegas, New Mexico. When they arrived in December 26th, they were met by crowds of curious onlookers. The following day, an armed mob gathered at the train depot before the prisoners, who were already boarded on the train with Garrett, departed for Santa Fe. Deputy Sheriff Romero, backed by the angry group of men, demanded custody of David Rothenberg, who during a unsuccessful escape attempt on April 5th, 1880, shot and killed Deputy Antonio Linio Valdez in the process. Garrett refused to surrender the prisoner, and a tension confirmed ensued until he agreed to let the sheriff and two other men accompany the party to Santa Fe, where they would petition the governor to release Rothenberg to them. Brandenburg. God, sometimes my mind just goes batshit crazy on stuff.
Rudabaugh.
Rudabar. I messed that up the entire time. In a later interview with a reporter, Billy Kidd said he was unafraid during the incident, saying, "If I only had my Winchester, I'd lick the whole crowd." The Las Vegas Gazette ran a story from the jailhouse interviewing fellow following the Billy Kid's capture. When the reporter said Bonnie appeared relaxed, he replied, "What's the use of looking on the gloom side of everything? The laughs on me at this time." During his short career as an outlaw, Billy the Kid was subject to numerous U.S. Newspaper articles, some as far as New York. After arriving in Santa Fe, Billy the Kid St. Clements sent Governor Wallace 4 letters over the next 3 months. Wallace refused to intervene, and Billy the Kid went to trial on April 1881 in Minnesota, New Mexico. Following 2 days of testimony, Billy Kid was found guilty of Sheriff Brady's murder. It was the only conviction secured against any of the combatants in the Lincoln County War. On April 13th, Judge Warren Bristol sentenced Billy the Kid to hang, with his execution scheduled for May 13th, 1881. According to the legend, upon sentencing, the judge told Billy the Kid he was going to hang until he was dead, dead, dead. Billy's response was, "You going to hell, hell, hell." According to the historical record, he did not speak after the reading of his sentencing. So that didn't really happen. Following his sentencing, Billy the Kid was moved to Lincoln, where he was held under guard on the top floor of the town courthouse, which is only 2 stories. While Garrett was in White Oaks collecting taxes, Deputy Bob Olger took 5 other prisoners across the street for a meal, leaving James Bell, another deputy, along with Billy the Kid at the jail. Billy asked to be taken outside to use the outhouse behind the courthouse. On their return to the jail, Billy the Kid, who was walking ahead of Bell up the stairs to the cell, hid around a blind corner, slipping out of his handcuffs and beating Bell with the loose end of the cuff. During this ensued scuffle, Billy Kid grabbed Bell's revolver and fatally shot him in the back as Bell tried to get away. Billy was in his leg shackles, broken into Garrett's office, and took a loaded shotgun left behind by Olger. Billy waited in the upstairs window for Olger to respond to the gunshot that killed Bell and called out to him, "Look up, old boy. See what you get." When Olger looked up, Billy shot and killed him. After about an hour, Billy freed himself from the leg irons with an axe. He obtained a horse and rode out of town. According to some stories, he was singing as he left Lincoln. When Billy was on the run, Governor Wallace placed a $500 bounty on the fugitive's head. Almost 3 months after his escape, Garrett responded to rumors that Billy was in the vicinity of Fort Summer. Left Lincoln with two deputies on July 14th, 1881, to question residents Pete Maxwell and friends of Billy the Kid. Maxwell, son of land baron Lucien Maxwell, spoke with Garrett the same day for several hours. Around midnight, the pair sat in Maxwell's darkened bedroom when Billy the Kid unexpectedly entered. Accounts vary as to the course of the offense. According to chronic canonical
Canonical.
canonical versions, as he entered the room, Billy the Kid failed to recognize Garrett's due to the poor lighting. Drawing his revolver and backing away, Billy asked, "Who is it? Who is it?" Recognizing Billy the Kid's voice, Garrett drew his revolver and fired twice. First bullet struck Billy in the chest, just above his heart, while the second missed. Garrett's account leaves it unclear whether Billy the Kid was killed instantly or took his time to die. A few hours after the shooting, a local justice of the peace assembled a coroner's jury. This is a new one on me.
Coroner's jury.
Yeah, coroner's jury of 6 people. The jury members interviewed Maxwell and Garrett, and Billy the Kid's body and the location of the shooting were examined. The jury certified the body as Billy the Kid, and according to local newspapers, the jury foreman said, it was Kid's body that we examined. And Billy Kid was given a wake by candlelight. He was buried the next day, and his grave was denoted with a wooden marker. 5 days after Billy the Kid's killing, Garrett traveled to Santa Fe, New Mexico, collected his $500 reward offered by Lewis Wallace, the governor, for his capture, dead or alive. William G. Ridge, the acting New Mexico governor, refused to pay the reward. Over the next few weeks, the residents of Las Vegas, Medellín, Santa Fe, White Oaks, and other New Mexico cities raised over $7,000 to reward money for Garrett. A year and 4 days after Billy Kid's death, the New Mexico Territory legislature passed a special act to grant Garrett the $500 bounty reward promised by Governor Wallace. So he got probably about $7,500. Jeez. All right. I moved the stuff. Okay, there we go. Because people had began to claim Garrett unfairly ambushed Billy the Kid, Garrett felt the need to tell his side of the story, called upon his friend, journalist Marshall Upston, to ghostwrite a book for him. The book, The Authentic Life of Billy the Kid, was first published April 1882. Although only a few copies sold following its release, in time it became reference for later historians who wrote about Billy the Kid's life. Okay, now there's actually speculations and rumors that he didn't die. Here's some accounts, and I'll go with a couple other ones. Over time, legend grew claiming that Billy the Kid was not killed, and that Garrett staged the incident and death out of friendship so Billy the Kid would evade the law. During the next 50 years, a number of men claimed that they were Billy the Kid. Most of these claims were easily disproved, but two remain topical of the discussion and debate. In 1948, a Central Texas man, Ole P. Roberts, also known as Bushy Bill Roberts, began claims he was Billy the Kid and went before the New Mexico governor Thomas J. Marbury seeking a pardon. Marbury dismissed Roberts' claims, and Roberts died shortly after. Needless, Hitco, Texas, Roberts' town of residence, capitalized on his claim and by opening a Billy the Kid museum. Now we'll go in more on him later. I'm just going to get through the other ones. John Miller, a Arizona man, also claimed that he was Billy the Kid. This was supported by his family until 1938, sometime after his death. Miller's body was buried in the state-owned Arizona Pioneer Home Cemetery in Prescott, Arizona. In May 2005, Miller's teeth and bones were exhumed and examined without permission from the state. DNA samples from the remains were sent to a laboratory in Dallas and tested to compare Miller's DNA with the blood samples obtained from the floorboards and the old Lincoln County Courthouse and a bench where McCarthy's body allegedly was placed after he'd been shot. According to July 2015 article in the Washington Post, the labs were useless. In 2004, researchers sought to exhume the remains of Kathy Anthem, Billy the Kid's mother, whose DNA would be tested and compared to the body buried by William Bonnie's grave. That's Bushy Bill Roberts. William Bonnie's grave, or Billy the Kid's grave. As of 2012, his body has never been not been exhumed. We'll get into that. 2007, author and amateur historian Gail Cooper filed a lawsuit against the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department under the State Inspection of Public Records Act to produce records of the results of 2006 DNA test and other forensic. I have to do the word. Come on, Stephen Hawking, help me once again. Forensic evidence collected in the Billy the Kid investigation. In April 2012, a 133-page document was provided. They offered no conclusion that would confirm or disprove the general acceptance story of Garrett's killing of McCarthy, or Billy the Kid, but confirmed the records existence and that they could be produced earlier. Sorry, I've been gassy all day. In 2014, Cooper was awarded $100,000 in pecuniary damages, but decision was later overturned by the New Mexico Court of Appeals. The lawsuit only cost Lincoln County nearly $300,000. In February 2015, historian Robert Stahl petitioned a district court in Fort Summers asking the state of New Mexico to issue a death certificate for McCarthy. We'll get into that. In July 2015, Stahl filed suit in the New Mexico Supreme Court. The suit asked the court to order a state official of medical investigators to officially certify Billy the Kid's death under New Mexico state law. Now, talking on all that stuff right there, the details of I was only able to find the other guy. What's his actual name? Bushy Bill. Sorry. The guy that lived in Hicko's for the Billy the Kid Museum. Now there's lots of speculation. Even our other co-host Johnny has speculations and wanted to talk about this, but he went on vacation, just told me to go with this, so I went with this. Uh, but we'll go with Sue Lanning, the director of Billy the Kid Museum in Hitco, says the best piece of evidence that Billy the Kid escaped Fort Sumner unscathed is Garrett's own deputy. When the deputy of the United States Marshal was with Pat Garrett at the time, rolled the body over, he looked up at Pat. It's recorded in the marshal office in New Mexico that he told Pat Garrett, "You killed the wrong man." Land tells Wide Open Country. Land says since Garrett shot in the dark, it's likely that he mistaken shot another man at that night. The man Garrett killed reportedly had a full beard, while Billy only sported peach fuzz. Unwilling to admit his mistake, Garrett identified the young man as Billy the Kid and buried him. He was going to bury Billy the Kid, and that's what he did, Land says. As for the evidence that Bushy Bill was Billy the Kid, it all comes down to the man named William Morrison. He was probated investigator who had been hired by Joe Hines, one of Kid's former associates. Hines told Morrison that Billy was still alive and living in Texas. Intrigued by the idea that one of historians' most notorious criminals had cheated death, Morrison traveled to Texas to meet with Bushy Bill. Bushy told him he was Billy the Kid and he wanted him to help prove it so he could get his pardon from the New Mexico governor, which he was promised back in the 1800s. Land said referring to the pardon bill and claims that he was promised by Lew Wallace. Still in the needed convincing, Morris sought further proof of Bushy telling the truth. The first thing that was checked was the wounds and scars that Bushy's body. They matched every known wound that Billy Kid was to have. Lance said, "I don't know any man that would go out of their way and put 5 bullet scars on their bodies so it'd match up to somebody else's." I've heard stranger. Bushy never received his pardon because New Mexico officials didn't believe he was really Billy the Kid. And while Bushy Bill's story gained support over the years, many remained skeptical. One cause for disbelief was the fact that Bushy's family Bible listed his birth as 1879, which that's what they used to do. They would jot down in the family Bible, family member was born. Nowadays we actually have birth certificates. So if the date was accurate, it would make it impossible for him to be Billy the Kid. Historian Roger Stahl has made his mission to disprove Bushy's story. Enough is enough, and from the supporters of Billy the Kid's imposters. In a 29-page petition in New Mexico, which I already studied, Stahl actually wanted a death certificate. I got that. Wanted a death certificate to verify that Billy Kid did die in New Mexico. They try to get this is the DNA part. The only way to solve this mystery is to perform a DNA test on the remains of Bushy Bill and the body buried in Billy the Kid in New Mexico grave. Then scientists could match the results to the DNA samples taken from Billy Kid's mother, Clarine Anthem. In 2003, Texas and New Mexico officials attempted to do just that. There was just one problem. All the grave markers in Fort Sumner Cemetery were washed away in a 1904 flood. If the real Billy the Kid was buried in New Mexico, no one knows where his body was or the body of his mother is actually located. So the DNA, they can't do the DNA evidence because of that. A lot of the stuff I get the resources for, I have to go like 3 different places sometimes. So that's the reason why I wanted to go with this too. Though Robert's claim takes on more twists and turns than a Texas county road, I can understand that. Many historians doubt this claim. Outlaw Billy the Kid is still one of the most beloved figures of Old West, and he still is keeping people guessing. Land says the museum receives visitors from all over the world, which is pretty flamboyant support for a man who thought had killed 21 men in his short life. He was an outlaw and a killer, according to everything that was written about him, Land says. Visitors say, well, we're not rooting for the killer. We're rooting for the 14-year-old kid to have made it out and have a life. So that's all of Billy Kid on this episode of Psychos and Sociopaths. Thank you for watching, listening, whatever you're doing. Give us a like if you can. Comments. We like those. Yeah, I said that a little light. But anyways, thank you all for listening and keeping up with this podcast and the YouTube channel and all the other places that we have. Honestly, I love doing this stuff. Even if I get like 5 or 6 views or a couple of listens, I just know someone out there is listening and having a good time with my voice and Johnny's voice. And soon Johnny will be finally able to sit down at a gathered up time so we can always do this. But with the other shows and everything, we're still doing a comedy show on Mondays, or it comes around Tuesdays. I'm always going to do this on Saturdays. This is our bread and butter. I love this show. I love everybody that listens to it, mostly women, because they love killers. I can change them. But thank you all for listening and watching. Take it easy, everybody. I'm David Dickerman. Thank you again.